Welcome to another edition of Turn 6 Garage. Today we've got a very, very rare automobile. A 1994 Saab 900 V6, but not just any 900 V6, a manual 94 900 V6. This is my 94 900 V6 manual to go with the collection of Euro trash that I own that looks like my garage is a bit like a prestige car dealership circa 2003. But 15 years I spent looking for one of these things and now I got one. One owner, full service history from country Victoria. Needed a lot of work, but still a one owner, full history car. And if you want to see this and a slew of new cars coming over the next weeks and months, remember to like and subscribe to this video. So, about this car. I was looking for rental bombs on Gumtree late last year, and on my ads came up this for $950. It hadn't moved, needed a lot of work. And I thought, you know what? Looking for one of these. Last one I've seen was one at Gray's about 2 years earlier that was a real bomb. And this, single owner, being sold by its original owner due to ill health. Being sold by the original owner's wife because the original owner was really, really sick. Decided to fall on it. Had to get it from Country Vic to Melbourne and sort out its numerous problems, of which it had many because it hadn't moved for a long time. It needed a lot of work, which we'll go into in another video. But fundamentally, I got a V6 manual 900. Not many of them around, not many 94s around. And one of the most special, and I would say one of the nicest saloon cars I've ever driven. It is a truly amazing find, and it's a truly rare find. I mean, this is rarer than a lot of Exoticas, a lot of Ferraris, a lot of Porsches, and nowhere near as rare in number as this V6 900. And unlike some other rarities which are rare for a very good reason, this is actually very special. It's actually a special car, and it's a nice car. So what's it like to go inside the 900? The 900's interior is actually a very special place to be. Lovely curved dashboard, lovely solid feeling to all the switches. And this one is in fantastic condition. For a 30-year-old car, it feels tight as a drum. The only thing I really complain about is this seat's a bit worn out. But everything else, every button, every switch, feels exactly like the day it did back in 1994. Everything feels solid, which for a Saab, normally these get quite sticky over time. This is actually quite amazing. This one has a sunroof. Now, it was fitted in Australia. Not sure whether these came from the factory with a roof. This one was put in very early on in its life. And this one here, for 1994, has traction control. Who'd have thought? So, there is something interesting though with this car. I've got really large size 14 feet. And I can't really drive this with my shoes on. So, to drive this car, I've got to do this. Yes, the limiting factor that stopped me buying so many JDM cars in the past, and so many other little sports cars. My big feet don't fit in this car. Of course they don't. But on the plus side, the rear legroom is quite commodious, so is the boot, and the switchgear, interior, all feels solid. So, there is something very, very special about this car. Now, Saab were taken over by GM, and we'll be going into that in subsequent videos about this car. When I turn this thing on, the key mounted down here, Saab's very clever ignition system, which is mounted low down, which is actually quite good because it frees up your legs in terms of space because the steering arrangement's sort of angled, and also doesn't insert into your knee in an accident, which is something Saab thought about with this car. This turns on a very special engine. 2.5 V6 engine, one of GM's best engines, I would say, in terms of 6 cylinders. Has an amazing noise. of the good things of the GM Saab relationship was this engine and this car. So, what's it like to drive? As I take my shoes off to drive the 900. Yes. And mount the key down here. The car's locked in reverse, which is an interesting Saab quirk. Everything feels solid though. And this 900 has a new clutch in it as well, so it feels really nice. That engine just pulls like a train. It's only got 125 kilowatts, but this thing has bucket loads of torque though underneath. It just pulls and pulls, and on a long highway drive, it is a fantastic car. I understand why its original owner bought it. If I was living in regional Victoria and I needed a car, I would definitely put my hands on one of these in 1994 in this configuration. The thing just pulls, and even on side streets, it really just wants to go. The way in which the pedals are with this thing and the way in which the clutch and gearbox interact is a little bit jerky compared to, say, something a bit newer, or some of the German manuals in Audis and BMWs I've driven from the same period. It's not as sweet as a lighter 4-cylinder engine car, but when you do get it right, it gives you more satisfaction. You have to work a bit harder to get it right with this one. But that's what makes it so special to me. It's one of the most satisfying cars to drive because it needs a bit of work to get it right. It doesn't just flow like other cars do, like I've noticed in the BMWs that I've owned, and the Merc, even the 230 flows a lot more. This thing needs a bit of guidance. But when you do it, when you hit that apex right, get it into a, about to say get into a good rhythm, but someone just slowed down. But when you get a good rhythm with this car, it feels very satisfying to drive. Although in traffic, in town, it's not the nicest thing in the world. Going low speed 40k now just doesn't feel as, it just wants to pull, just wants to go. And even with the newer clutch, the gearbox and the way it interacts is quite heavy. But I don't think this car was meant for in-town driving as much. And the 900, it's a very, compared to my E36 and compared to the W202, it is a very different place to be. But that's what made them interesting, because it offered a point of difference when you come to look at buying a car in that class at that time. Something today's manufacturers could learn from, everything being the same. Well, that's why I like it, because it's not the same to everything else. It's different to a BM, to an Alfa, to a Merc. But where the 900 excels is on the freeway. High-speed cornering, not a lot of understeer. It likes going around corners at high speed. And that engine pulling away to 100 k's in third, it just goes. From 60 to 100, it just runs. And has plenty of torque in fourth and fifth. In the right gear, you can just pull out, pull in, overtake these individuals and leave them for dead in this car. You can definitely tell this car was meant for high-speed driving. It is a fantastic car to munch up freeway Ks with. Just to munch up the mileage, this thing is great. If I was going long distance, it'd be a tough choice between this and my 97 E230. As I get off the highway, one last burst. Fourth, third, then second, into the corner. Careful, there's no
no traffic. It really makes you think about every gear change in every corner. And it does that very well. It makes you really, really get on top of it, because that feeling when you get on top of it in the V6 900 is properly special. Yes, this might be a 30-year-old saloon car with an engine that comes out of a humdrum Opel Vauxhall Cavalier. Yes, it might be a car that's from a manufacturer that's no longer with us, sadly. Yes, it might be something that most people would scoff at. But in terms of driving pleasure and in terms of feeling in saloon car land, this has to be one of the most satisfying cars I've ever driven. And that comes from a lot of higher end Euros, Japanese. I've driven that many saloons and hot hatches in my time, and I find this one to be one of my most satisfying ones. You can enjoy driving it at road speeds, you can enjoy driving it anywhere. I love this car, and for all that time and effort I spent looking for it, it was worth it. To see another V6 900 live on is one of the most special cars I've ever done. If I had $50-something thousand in 1994, it'd be between this and a Club Sport. I'd be really struggling, or a manual E36. All of them with different characteristics, different styles, and different strengths and weaknesses. But that's what made that time so good with cars. There were plenty of alternatives for different people, for different times of your life. And that's what I feel when I drive this car. I feel like we're missing this now. No one's gone to make something different and unusual. It's so satisfying to drive. It's so satisfying to drive this car right and well. It has sparkle, dust and magic that I absolutely love about this car. It's what makes it a special car. It's what makes it something I love very, very much. You can hear there's some clunking in the back. There are things in this car that I do daily drive it. I do actually use it. It does understeer, particularly on a downhill corner, but it's very controllable. Anyway, thank you for watching. And if you like what we do, remember to like and subscribe.